The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional automotive, financial, or investment advice. The automotive industry is subject to rapid technological shifts, regulatory changes, and supply chain fluctuations that can alter production timelines and vehicle specifications. All data regarding future models, performance metrics, and estimated pricing are based on current market trends and manufacturer announcements as of early 2026. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence, consult with certified automotive professionals, and review official manufacturer documentation before making any purchasing or investment decisions. We do not endorse specific brands, and any potential outcomes discussed are based on historical trends and available case studies. The internal combustion engine, the very heartbeat of American culture for over a century, has officially entered its twilight era, but not in the way anyone predicted. If you believe that the transition to 2026 models is just about adding bigger screens or slightly better battery range, you are fundamentally misunderstanding the greatest industrial pivot in human history. Right now, as we speak, there is a silent war happening in the R&D labs of Detroit, Stuttgart, and Silicon Valley. We are witnessing the birth of the software-defined vehicle, a shift so radical that your 2026 car will have more in common with an F-35 fighter jet than the vehicle currently sitting in your driveway. In fact, historical trends in patent filings suggest that by the end of this year, the average new vehicle will process more data per second than the entire global internet did in the late 90s. But here is the controversial truth that the big dealerships do not want you to hear. The 2026 model year represents a massive fork in the road. Choose the right platform now, and you are sitting on a masterpiece of engineering that will receive over-the-air updates for a decade. Choose the wrong one, and you are purchasing a 1,000-pound paperweight that will be technologically obsolete before your first oil change. We have analyzed the telemetry, the leaked schematics, and the pre-production prototypes to show you exactly which manufacturers are actually innovating and which ones are just putting a digital coat of paint on a dying legacy. This deep dive is designed to solve the single most pressing problem facing American drivers today: the paralysis of choice in an era of hyper-innovation. Whether you are an enthusiast looking for the last great high-performance hybrid or a daily commuter trying to navigate the complex landscape of the new federal tax credits and charging infrastructures, the stakes have never been higher. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the 2026 lineup to give you a masterclass in what is actually coming to the showroom floor. We are moving past the marketing jargon and the polished commercials to look at the structural shifts in solid-state battery integration, the implementation of Level 3 autonomous driving on U.S. highways, and the return of tactile luxury in an increasingly sterile digital world. This is not just a preview. It is your strategic roadmap for the 2026 automotive landscape. To understand why 2026 is the definitive turning point, we have to look at the convergence of three specific technological pillars: energy density, computational power, and the democratization of luxury. Historically, when we looked at new car models, we evaluated them based on displacement, horsepower, and torque. In 2026, those metrics are becoming secondary to silicon efficiency and thermal management. Take, for example, the recent case studies involving silicon anode battery technology. For years, we were told that the limit of electric range was a hard ceiling dictated by the weight of lithium-ion packs. However, 2026 models from several major manufacturers are now beginning to implement high silicon content cells, which offer a potential outcome of 20 to 30% higher energy density. This means that a vehicle with the same physical footprint as last year's model can now travel significantly further on a single charge while weighing less, directly impacting handling, braking, and overall safety. But the real story of 2026 is not just how far these cars can go, but how they think. We are seeing a massive influx of centralized compute architectures. In previous decades, a car might have dozens of small, isolated computers or electronic control units, each responsible for a single task like moving a seat or firing a spark plug. The 2026 models are moving toward a zonal architecture. This is a system where a few powerful central processors act as the brain of the vehicle, allowing for a level of integration we have never seen. Imagine a car that uses its suspension sensors to detect a pothole and instantly shares that data with every other vehicle of the same brand on the road, or a car that adjusts its cabin temperature based on your heart rate and stress levels detected through the steering wheel. This is the level of sophistication we are breaking down today. We must also address the elephant in the room: the cost of ownership. The 2026 model year is the first time we are seeing a true stabilization in the production costs of advanced drivetrains. Case studies of manufacturing efficiency in 2024 and 2025 have paved the way for 2026 to be the year where the price gap between traditional internal combustion engines and high-tech alternatives begins to narrow significantly. This is largely due to the gigacasting, or large-scale die-casting methods that are now being adopted by legacy automakers to compete with newer, tech-focused entrants. By reducing the number of parts in a vehicle's frame from hundreds to just a few, manufacturers are able to reinvest those savings into interior quality and advanced software features. For the American consumer, this means that the 2026 models are offering more value per dollar than perhaps any year in the last 2 decades, provided you know where to look. As we go through this 10-part masterclass, we will examine specific models across every category. We will look at the resurgence of the American luxury sedan, which is being reinvented as a mobile executive lounge. We will dive deep into the 2026 truck market, where towing capacity is being redefined by massive torque curves that were previously impossible without heavy-duty diesel engines. We will also explore the enthusiast market, where several brands are fighting to keep the manual transmission alive through clever hybrid pairings that offer the soul of a classic car with the performance of a supercar. The 2026 model year is also the year of the transparent vehicle. Augmented reality is no longer a gimmick found in high-end German sedans. It is becoming a standard safety feature across mid-range SUVs. In these new models, head-up displays are being expanded to cover the entire windshield, projecting navigation lines directly onto the asphalt and highlighting pedestrians or wildlife that the human eye might miss in low-light conditions. This is the integration of LiDAR and camera-based systems working in a symphony of safety. We are going to look at the data from initial safety trials which show that these systems have the potential to reduce nighttime accidents by a staggering margin compared to traditional lighting systems. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the shift in the aesthetics of the 2026 fleet. We are seeing a departure from the aggressive styling that dominated the 2010s. The 2026 design language is focused on kinetic aerodynamics. Every curve, every vent, and every hidden door handle is engineered to slice through the air with a drag coefficient that would make a fighter jet jealous. This is not just for show. In the world of 2026, efficiency is the new horsepower. Even for those who still prefer the roar of a V8, the 2026 models are using active aero to provide better fuel economy during cruising, while maintaining the performance enthusiasts crave. In this first part of our deep dive, we have set the stage for a year that will be remembered as the great reset of the automotive world. You are about to see how the car is transforming from a mode of transportation into a sophisticated piece of wearable technology that you happen to sit inside. We have thousands of data points to cover, from the chemistry of the new solid-state pilots to the ethical programming of the latest self-driving algorithms. If you have been waiting for the right time to upgrade your vehicle, or if you are simply a student of the industry trying to understand where the billions of dollars in R&D are going, you are in the right place. We are going to show you the 2026 car models that are not just changing the way we drive, but changing the way we live. Would you like me to continue with part 2, where we dive into the specific technological breakthroughs of the 2026 flagship electric sedans? The race for the 2026 flagship electric sedan market is no longer about who can build the fastest car. It is about who can build the most intelligent ecosystem. We have moved past the era of simple battery swaps and basic touchscreens into a period defined by computational supremacy and thermal efficiency. If you are looking at the 2026 lineup, you are looking at vehicles that are essentially high-performance data centers wrapped in aerodynamic glass and steel. To see how this affects a real-world user, imagine a professional named James living in a cold-weather state like Illinois in 2026. James needs a vehicle that can handle a 60-mile commute in sub-zero temperatures without losing 40% of its range to cabin heating and battery conditioning. In years past, this was a significant hurdle, but the 2026 flagship sedans have solved this through advanced heat pump integration and silicon carbide inverters. Let us start with the 2026 Tesla Model S, a vehicle that continues to serve as the performance benchmark for the entire industry. While the exterior silhouette remains familiar, the internal architecture has undergone a massive shift toward what engineers call a single pane of glass software environment. The 2026 Model S Plaid variant is pushing a staggering 1,020 horsepower through its tri-motor setup. Historically, high-performance vehicles struggled with heat soak, where repeated high-speed runs would lead to power degradation. However, case studies of the 2026 thermal management system show a potential outcome of consistent peak performance even after multiple launches. This is achieved through a new carbon-sleeved rotor design that allows for higher RPMs without the centrifugal forces tearing the motor apart. For the average driver, this means a 0 to 60 time of exactly 2 seconds, but the real value lies in the efficiency. The 2026 Model S achieves an EPA estimated range of 410 miles on a 100 kilowatt-hour battery. This translates to an efficiency rating of over 120 mpg, a historical trend that Tesla has maintained by obsessively refining its drive unit manufacturing. Contrast this with the 2026 Lucid Air, which has taken a completely different approach to the flagship experience. Lucid is not just selling a car, they are selling the concept of energy density as a luxury. In the latest 2026 NAF winter test case studies, the Lucid Air Grand Touring outperformed every other vehicle on the market, covering 520 kilometers in extreme cold, while its closest competitor fell nearly 100 kilometers short. This is not magic. It is the result of a vertically integrated powertrain where the motor, inverter, and transmission are all housed in a single unit that fits inside a standard carry-on suitcase. For 2026, Lucid has introduced software version 3.5, which finally brings full Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration to their Clearview cockpit via an over-the-air update. Imagine James getting into his Lucid Air. The car recognizes his phone before he even touches the door handle, preconditioning the cabin using a sophisticated scavenging system that pulls waste heat from the computer processors to warm the battery cells. This level of granular control over every watt of energy is what allows the 2026 Lucid Air to claim a total potential range of over 500 miles in ideal conditions. Now let us step into the 2026 Mercedes-Benz EQS, a vehicle that represents the pinnacle of the software-defined luxury sanctuary. If the Tesla is a sports tool and the Lucid is an engineering marvel, the EQS is a digital oasis. The centerpiece for 2026 remains the MBUX Hyperscreen, a 56-inch curved glass panel that houses 3 distinct OLED displays. But for the 2026 model year, Mercedes has moved to a more advanced zonal architecture. Instead of having a central computer trying to manage everything, the car is divided into zones, each with its own high-speed controller. This reduces the amount of heavy copper wiring by nearly 50 pounds, which in turn increases the efficiency of the 118 kilowatt-hour battery. Case studies on the 2026 EQS 450 Plus show an EPA estimated range of 390 miles. The real innovation here is the implementation of Level 3 Drive Pilot on U.S. highways. In certain traffic conditions, James can actually take his hands off the wheel and his eyes off the road to check emails or watch a video on the passenger side screen. The car uses a combination of LiDAR, long-range radar, and redundant optical cameras to create a 360-degree safety cocoon. This is a historical trend in Mercedes engineering: safety through redundancy. For those who prioritize the driving experience above all else, the 2026 Porsche Taycan remains the definitive choice. Porsche has not tried to compete on raw range. Instead, they have focused on charging speed and repeatable performance. The convergence of these flagship models in 2026 shows a clear market split. Tesla owns the performance and charging network space. Lucid owns the efficiency and range crown. Mercedes owns the autonomous luxury and digital interface realm. Porsche owns the driving dynamics and charging speed. And BMW owns the executive comfort and entertainment experience. For the consumer, this means the problem of 2026 is no longer about finding an EV that works. It is about choosing which specific technological philosophy fits your lifestyle. As James navigates his daily route, he is no longer worried about finding a charger or whether the car will start in the cold. He is deciding whether he wants his car to be his office, his cinema, or his racetrack. But here is the loop you need to consider. While these sedans are the technology leaders, they are facing a massive threat from a different segment of the market. The innovations we have just discussed, zonal architecture, 800-volt charging, and Level 3 autonomy, are about to be dropped into the most popular vehicles in America. We are talking about the 2026 SUV and truck lineup. If you think a 2-second sedan is impressive, wait until you see what happens when these manufacturers apply that same torque to a 7,000-pound frame designed for the Rubicon Trail. The battle for the American driveway is moving from the pavement to the dirt, and the specifications for the 2026 electric trucks are going to make everything we just talked about look like a warm-up act. How do you manage 10,000 pounds of towing capacity with an electric motor without killing the range in 50 miles? That is exactly what we are breaking down in the next part. The The challenge of moving 10,000 pounds of steel and cargo across state lines without stopping every 50 miles is the final frontier for the electric vehicle industry, and the 2026 truck lineup has met this challenge with a combination of brute force and high-level physics. To understand the magnitude of this shift, we need to look at Mark, a contractor in Texas who in 2026 is trading in his heavy-duty diesel for the new GMC Sierra EV Denali Edition 1. Mark represents the core of the American truck market. Someone who does not just drive a truck for the aesthetic, but relies on its ability to haul equipment to job sites and pull a 20-foot boat to the lake on weekends. Historically, the concern with electric trucks was the catastrophic range drop under load. Case studies from early 2024 models showed that towing a heavy trailer could slash range by as much as 50%. However, the 2026 models have pivoted by simply making the gas tank, or in this case the battery, so large and the charging so fast that the traditional drawbacks are being mitigated. The 2026 GMC Sierra EV Denali is a masterclass in this philosophy. It is built on the Ultium platform, which allows for a massive double-stacked battery pack. This truck is not just a converted internal combustion vehicle. It is a structural battery with a cabin on top. The potential outcome for Mark is a GM estimated range of 460 miles on a full charge when unladen. Even with a 50% reduction while towing a heavy trailer, he is still looking at over 200 miles of real-world range. But the secret weapon of the 2026 Sierra EV is its 800-volt DC fast-charging architecture. Step by step, when Mark pulls into a 350-kilowatt charger, the vehicle can add 100 miles of range in approximately 10 minutes. This shifts the towing experience from a logistical nightmare to a manageable 10-minute break, a historical trend we are seeing across the General Motors EV portfolio as they prioritize charging speed over absolute battery size. Then we have the 2026 Chevrolet Silverado EV, specifically the new Trail Boss trim. This model is designed for the person who needs to tow through the mud and over broken terrain. For 2026, Chevrolet has refined the E4WD system, which uses independent motors on the front and rear axles to deliver up to 760 horsepower and 785 pound-feet of torque in wide-open Watts mode. Imagine Mark needing to pull a trailer out of a muddy construction site. In a traditional truck, he might struggle with wheel spin and transmission heat. In the 2026 Silverado EV, the software monitors traction at each wheel thousands of times per second, delivering exactly enough torque to move the load without digging into the dirt. Furthermore, the 2026 Silverado EV features the Multiflex midgate, which allows Mark to fold down the back of the cab to carry items over 10 feet long while still keeping the tailgate closed. This kind of structural innovation is only possible because there is no traditional engine or transmission tunnel taking up space. But the most disruptive entry in the 2026 truck market is undoubtedly the Ram 1500R EV. Ram has taken a different approach to the range anxiety problem by introducing a model that functions as a range-extended electric truck. This is a critical case study for the 2026 model year. The Ram 1500R EV features a massive battery pack, but it also includes an onboard generator powered by a V6 engine that never actually drives the wheels. Its only job is to provide power to the battery when it runs low. For Mark, this means he has the instant torque and silent operation of an electric truck for 90% of his driving, but when he is towing a 14,000-pound load, which is the best-in-class towing capacity for 2026, across the desert, the generator kicks in to ensure he never has to hunt for a charging station. This hybrid logic approach is a potential outcome for many buyers who are not yet ready to go fully tethered to the grid. We also have to discuss the 2026 Ford F-150 Lightning, which has undergone a significant mid-cycle refresh. For 2026, Ford has standardized the 123 kilowatt-hour extended range battery across almost the entire lineup, including the new STX trim. This move is a direct response to historical trends showing that American truck buyers rarely opt for the smaller battery once they understand the utility of the larger pack. The 2026 Lightning also introduces the Power Station Pro system, which can offboard up to 9.6 kilowatts of power. Imagine Mark at a job site with no grid access. His truck can power his circular saws, compressors, and even a small trailer office for days without significantly denting the driving range. Ford has also improved the Pro Trailer Hitch Assist, which uses the truck's rear cameras and ultrasonic sensors to automatically back the truck up and align the hitch ball with the trailer coupler. It is a seamless hands-free operation that solves one of the most stressful parts of truck ownership. For the enthusiast who wants supercar performance in a rugged package, the 2026 Rivian R1T remains the gold standard. The 2026 quad-motor variant has been re-engineered with Rivian's in-house designed motors, producing a staggering 1,025 horsepower. This allows the truck to hit 60 miles per hour in just 2.5 seconds. But more importantly for the adventurer, Rivian has introduced the Max battery pack across more trims for 2026, offering up to 420 miles of range. They have also switched to the North American Charging Standard or NACS port, meaning Mark can now pull into any Tesla supercharger across the country without needing an adapter. The 2026 R1T also features a fully redesigned heat pump system that significantly improves efficiency in the cold, a major win for users in the Pacific Northwest or New England. The 2026 SUV market is following the same trajectory. The 2026 Cadillac Escalade IQ is perhaps the most ambitious luxury SUV ever built. It features a pillar-to-pillar 55-inch total diagonal screen and a 450-mile range. It uses a heavy-duty air suspension that can raise or lower the vehicle by 2 inches, allowing Mark's family to step into a low-slung luxury lounge that can then transform into a high-clearance off-roader at the touch of a button. The level of craftsmanship in the 2026 Escalade IQ, from the laser-etched wood patterns to the executive second-row seating with stowable tray tables and dual screens, shows that the 2026 model year is about removing the compromises of the past. Data from the first quarter of 2026 suggests that the resale value of these high-capacity electric trucks is holding steady as the infrastructure catches up to the hardware. The implementation of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program has placed high-speed chargers every 50 miles along major U.S. interstates, making the long-haul towing trips that Mark once feared a routine reality. We are seeing a historical trend where the early adopter phase has ended, and we have entered the era of mass-market utility. The 2026 truck is no longer a science experiment. It is the most capable tool in the shed. As we look at these behemoths of the 2026 lineup, it is easy to get caught up in the 1,000 horsepower figures and the 12,000-pound towing capacities. But there is a silent revolution happening on the other end of the spectrum. While the flagship trucks are pushing the limits of what is possible, a new generation of vehicles is arriving that aims to do something even more difficult: make all of this technology affordable for the average American family. The high-end trucks are the pioneers, but the next segment we are going to look at is the one that will actually fill the suburban streets of 2026 and 2027. We are moving from the high-stakes world of heavy-duty hauling to the high-volume world of the budget-friendly EV, and the return of the compact enthusiast car. But there is a secret about the 2026 entry-level models that no one is talking about. A specific hardware limitation that could make your bargain purchase a very expensive mistake. We are diving into the 2026 affordable car crisis in the next part. The transition to the 2026 affordable car market is being hailed as the great democratization of the electric vehicle, but for the unsuspecting buyer, it is actually a minefield of hidden technical compromises. We are seeing a flood of new models hitting the sub-$30,000 price point, a threshold that was considered the holy grail of the industry just 24 months ago. However, the way manufacturers are achieving these price tags involves a series of high-stakes engineering trade-offs that could drastically affect the long-term utility of your purchase. To see how this plays out in the real world, let us look at Sarah, a traveling nurse in Seattle who is in the market for a 2026 commuter vehicle. Sarah needs a car that is reliable, easy to park, and most importantly, affordable on a standard monthly budget. In the 2026 landscape, she is looking at 3 primary contenders: the resurrected Chevrolet Bolt, the third-generation Nissan Leaf, and the new Kia EV2. Let us start with the 2027 Chevrolet Bolt, which is actually arriving in showrooms in the first quarter of 2026. General Motors realized that discontinuing the original Bolt was a strategic error, and they have brought it back with a vengeance. The 2026 release Bolt is built on the updated Ultium platform, but with a massive twist to keep the price at approximately $29,990. It utilizes lithium iron phosphate or LFP battery chemistry. Historically, LFP was reserved for energy storage or low-range city cars in overseas markets, but for 2026, it is the backbone of the American budget EV. For Sarah, the potential outcome of choosing the Bolt is a vehicle with a GM estimated range of 255 miles. The advantage of LFP is longevity. Sarah can charge this car to 100% every single night without the accelerated degradation seen in high-performance nickel-cobalt batteries. Case studies on LFP cells suggest they can last for over 3,000 charge cycles, which theoretically means the battery could outlast the chassis of the car itself. However, the 2026 Bolt reveals the first major limitation of the affordable segment: cold weather performance and weight. LFP batteries are significantly heavier than their NCM counterparts for the same amount of energy. This means the 2026 Bolt has to use a stiffer suspension to manage the extra mass, leading to a ride quality that feels less refined than the flagship models we discussed earlier. Furthermore, LFP chemistry struggles in the freezing Seattle winters. Without the sophisticated and expensive preconditioning systems found in a $60,000 Cadillac, Sarah might see her charging speeds drop by 50% when the temperature hits 32 degrees. The 2026 Bolt tries to mitigate this with a new 150 kilowatt DC fast charging capability, which is a massive leap over the 55 kilowatts of the previous generation, but it still requires the battery to be at an optimal thermal window. Then we have the 2026 Nissan Leaf, which has finally shed its dorky hatchback styling for a sleek, coupe-like crossover aesthetic. Nissan is positioning the Leaf S Plus at a starting price of $29,990, exactly matching the Bolt. The 2026 Leaf features a 75 kilowatt-hour battery and an EPA estimated range of 303 miles. This makes it a range leader in the budget category. Nissan has also finally retired the HDMI charging port in favor of the NACS standard, meaning Sarah can use the massive Tesla supercharger network. The innovation in the 2026 Leaf is the use of the E4 ORC twin-motor all-wheel drive system, which is now available on higher trims. This system provides a level of foul-weather traction that was previously unavailable at this price point. But here is where the hardware limitation starts to creep in. To keep costs down, the entry-level Leaf S utilizes a simplified air-cooled thermal management system for the battery. While better than previous generations, historical trends show that repeated fast charging in hot climates can still lead to thermal throttling, a trade-off that buyers in Arizona or Texas need to weigh carefully. Now let us consider the Kia EV2, the new entry point for the Korean brand in 2026. Priced at roughly $30,500, the EV2 is a masterclass in space efficiency. It uses a 400-volt version of the eGMP platform to save on component costs. Sarah would find an interior that feels surprisingly premium, with dual 12.3-inch screens and sustainable materials. The EV2 offers two battery options, a 42 kilowatt-hour pack for city use and a 61 kilowatt-hour pack for longer commutes. The 61 kilowatt-hour model provides a range of approximately 281 miles. Kia's strategy for 2026 is focusing on the software experience, offering a version of their CCNC infotainment system that supports deep over-the-air updates. This brings us to the core of the 2026 affordable car crisis, the distinction between shallow OTA and deep OTA. This is the hardware limitation that could make your bargain purchase a very expensive mistake. In 2026, every manufacturer claims their car is software-defined, but for the budget models, this is often a marketing exaggeration. A shallow OTA system can update your maps, change the color of your ambient lighting, or add a new music app. However, it cannot touch the powertrain, the battery management system, or the safety sensors. If a manufacturer discovers a way to improve braking efficiency or battery life through software 6 months after Sarah buys her car, a shallow OTA vehicle would require a physical trip to the dealership for a firmware flash, or worse, it might not be compatible at all. Contrast this with the 2026 Tesla Model 2, often referred to in industry leaks as Project Redwood. While Tesla has been secretive, the 2026 entry-level model is expected to utilize the unboxed manufacturing process, which treats the car like a giant Lego set to reduce assembly costs by 50%. The potential outcome is a vehicle priced as low as $25,000 that still features deep OTA capabilities. This means the car's central computer can actually rewrite the code for how the motors respond or how the heat pump operates. For Sarah, this represents a vehicle that actually gets better over time, whereas the legacy budget models from some other manufacturers are technologically frozen the moment they leave the assembly line. The data from 2026 Consumer Reports suggests that the gap between a software-first car and a hardware-first car is widening. Buyers of affordable 2026 models are finding that while they saved $5,000 on the purchase price, they are essentially buying a static product in a world that is moving at the speed of silicon. We are seeing a historical trend where the resale value of shallow OTA vehicles is beginning to plummet compared to their deep OTA counterparts. This is the new depreciation. It is no longer just about miles on the odometer. It is about the version number of your car's operating system. Imagine if Sarah buys a 2026 budget EV that lacks the computational overhead to run the next generation of Level 2 Plus driver assistance. But while we have spent our time looking at the practical and the affordable, there is a segment of the 2026 market that is doing the exact opposite. There is a group of engineers who have looked at the all-electric future and said, not yet. They are creating the ultimate swan song for the internal combustion engine, using high-performance hybrid technology to create cars that offer the soul of the past with the speed of the future. The 2026 performance hybrids are arriving, and they are bringing a level of mechanical complexity that makes a standard EV look like a toy. We are looking at the last of the legendary engines in the next part, and you won't believe which iconic American nameplate is getting a 1,000-horsepower hybrid heart. The era of the pure, unadulterated internal combustion engine is not ending with a whimper. It is ending with a 1,250-horsepower scream that defies the laws of traditional physics. In 2026, we are witnessing a phenomenon that automotive historians will likely call the hybrid hyperpeak. This is the moment where manufacturers have stopped trying to choose between gasoline and electricity, and have instead decided to weaponize both simultaneously to create machines that were technically impossible just 5 years ago. To understand the gravity of this shift, consider David, a longtime performance enthusiast in Florida, who has spent his life tuning naturally aspirated V8s. In 2026, David is looking at a market where the flagship American sports car has evolved into a legitimate global hypercar slayer. The crown jewel of this movement is the 2026 Chevrolet Corvette ZR1X. For years, rumors swirled about a mythical Zora model that would combine the raw power of the ZR1 with the all-wheel drive grip of the E-Ray. And in 2026, that myth has become a terrifying reality. The ZR1X is the most advanced vehicle ever to wear the Cross Flags badge. At its heart lies the LT7, a 5.5-liter twin-turbocharged V8 with a flat-plane crankshaft that produces 1,064 horsepower on its own. But General Motors didn't stop there. By integrating a high-performance electric drive unit on the front axle, they have pushed the total system output to a staggering 1,250 horsepower and 828 pound-feet of torque. This is not just a numbers game. It is a fundamental shift in how power is applied to the pavement. Case studies of the ZR1XS launch control system show a potential outcome of a 0-60 sprint in a mind-bending 1.89 seconds. Step by step, the car uses its front electric motor to provide instant torque fill while the massive twin turbos spool up, resulting in a linear acceleration curve that feels more like a takeoff in a private jet than a traditional car launch. David, sitting at a red light in his ZR1X, has the ability to engage stealth mode for a silent, electric-only departure for up to 5 miles, only to unleash over 1,000 horsepower the moment he hits the highway on-ramp. While Chevrolet is using hybrids to chase hypercar status, Ford has taken a different route with the 2026 Mustang GTD. This is not a pony car. It is a street-legal GT3 race car that happens to have a license plate. The GTD features a 5.2-liter supercharged V8 generating 815 horsepower. But the real magic is in the transaxle. By moving the 8-speed dual-clutch transmission to the rear, Ford has achieved a near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution. Historically, Mustangs have struggled with the heavy nose syndrome typical of front-engine layouts, but the GTD solves this through an incredibly complex pushrod suspension and Multimatic spool valve dampers that are visible through the rear window where a trunk would normally be. For David, the GTD represents the ultimate track day weapon. It features active aerodynamics, including a massive C-pillar-mounted rear wing that can adjust its angle in real time to maximize downforce or minimize drag. Data from recent testing at the Nürburgring shows the GTD successfully lapping the circuit in under 7 minutes, a feat that places it in the elite company of the world's most expensive exotics. This is the case study of American engineering reaching its absolute zenith, proving that the supercharged V8 still has a seat at the table in 2026. Crossing the Atlantic, the 2026 Porsche 911 has officially entered the hybrid era with the 992.2 generation, specifically the T-hybrid system. Porsche's approach is vastly different from the high-voltage plug-ins we see elsewhere. The 2026 911 GTS utilizes a 3.6-liter boxer engine paired with an innovative e-turbo. Imagine if David were driving through a winding mountain pass. In a traditional turbocharged car, there is always a slight delay between hitting the pedal and the power arriving. Porsche has solved this by placing an electric motor directly inside the turbocharger, which can spin the turbine up to speed instantly, even before the exhaust gases have built up pressure. This T-hybrid system adds exactly zero delay to the throttle response, giving the 3.6-liter engine the characteristics of a massive naturally aspirated motor, while providing a total system output of 532 horsepower. It is a masterclass in efficiency, using a compact 1.9 kilowatt-hour battery that weighs only 59 pounds. This allows the 911 to remain light and agile, preserving the driving dynamics that have made the model an icon for 60 years. However, the 2026 performance hybrid landscape isn't just about small gains. It is also about the total replacement of legendary engines. Case in point, the 2026 Lamborghini Temerario. The beloved naturally aspirated V10 of the Huracan is gone, replaced by a 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 that revs to a heart-stopping 10,000 revolutions per minute. This engine is supported by 3 electric motors, pushing total output to 907 horsepower. Lamborghini has utilized axial flux motors, which offer a higher power density than the radial flux motors found in standard EVs. For someone like David, the Temerario offers the best of both worlds: the high revving theater of a classic Italian supercar, and the brutal, instantaneous torque of a modern electric drivetrain. Historical trends in the supercar market suggest that while purists may mourn the V10, the sheer performance capability of the Temerario, with its 2.7-second 0 to 60 time, will quickly win them over. Even Dodge, the brand that built its entire identity on the Hemi V8, is pivoting back to internal combustion for 2026 after the initial electric-only push. The 2026 Dodge Charger 6-pack introduces the 3.0-liter twin-turbo Hurricane inline-6 engine, producing up to 550 horsepower. This is a crucial case study in market adaptation. Dodge realized that a significant portion of their base wasn't ready to go full electric, so they engineered the new Charger platform to accommodate both the Daytona EV and the gas-powered 6-pack. The 6-pack model provides the mechanical soul that muscle car fans crave, complete with a dual exhaust note that, while different from a V8, still offers a visceral connection to the machine. For David, this represents a choice: the futuristic sound of the fretosonic chambered exhaust in the EV or the rhythmic pulse of a high-output straight 6. The 2026 performance market is a testament to the fact that internal combustion is not dead. It is just being forced to work harder and smarter. We are seeing the implementation of carbon ceramic brakes as standard equipment on models where they were once a $20,000 option, simply because the speeds these cars are now capable of reaching require extreme stopping power. The Alcon 10-piston calipers on the Corvette ZR1X are a prime example, designed to handle the thermal load of slowing down a 1,250 horsepower vehicle from speeds exceeding 230 miles per hour. But as we look at these monsters of the 2026 lineup, we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. With cars reaching these levels of power and complexity, how is the average driver or the average road system supposed to keep up? All of this performance is being governed by a digital layer that is becoming more invasive every year. While we celebrate the horsepower, there is a regulatory storm brewing that is about to change the way we interact with our cars forever. In 2026, the car is no longer just a machine you control. It is a machine that is constantly watching you, and in many cases it is reporting back to headquarters. In the next part, we are stepping away from the track and into the cabin to look at the 2026 interior revolution and the Big Brother tech that is now standard in every new vehicle sold in America. There is a specific new feature coming to 2027 models that is being fast-tracked into late 2026 cars, and it might be the most controversial piece of hardware ever installed in a passenger vehicle. We are diving into the privacy crisis of the 2026 interior in the next part. The transition from the raw mechanical adrenaline of the performance hybrid to the silent, sterile environment of the 2026 car interior is perhaps the most jarring shift in automotive history. While we have spent decades focusing on what is happening under the hood, the 2026 model year has shifted the theater of innovation to the cabin. But there is a dark side to this digital evolution. As you step into a 2026 vehicle, you are not just entering a mode of transportation. You are stepping into a high-fidelity surveillance suite. To understand the implications for the average American, let us look at Chloe, a marketing executive in Chicago who recently took delivery of a 2026 midsize luxury SUV. For Chloe, the interior is a masterpiece of minimalist design, dominated by a pillar-to-pillar 5K OLED display that replaces every traditional button and dial. However, Hidden behind that sleek glass and integrated into the fabric of the A-pillars is a network of infrared sensors and high-resolution cameras that are constantly mapping her every move. This is the era of the Mandatory Driver Monitoring System, or DMS. While the European Union's General Safety Regulation has mandated advanced driver distraction warning systems for all new vehicles by July 2026, the United States market has effectively followed suit due to the global nature of automotive platforms. In Chloe's 2026 model, the DMS is no longer a passive safety feature that occasionally chirps when she looks at her phone. It is an active, always-on auditor of her physiological state. Step by step, the system uses near-infrared light to track her gaze, the position of her head, and even the dilation of her pupils. Case studies from 2026 safety trials show a potential outcome where these systems can detect signs of microsleep or cognitive distraction, where a driver is looking at the road but their brain is elsewhere, up to 5 seconds before the driver themselves is even aware of the lapse. But the controversy lies in what happens to that data. Historically, vehicle data stayed within the vehicle's local storage. In 2026, your car is generating approximately 25 gigabytes of data per hour of driving, and thanks to high-speed 5G and satellite connectivity, much of that data is being offboarded in real time. This brings us to the Big Brother crisis. Recent reports from late 2025 and early 2026 have exposed a massive secondary market for driver behavior data. Imagine Chloe driving through a heavy rainstorm in Chicago. Her car records how hard she is braking, the frequency of her windshield wiper use, and her steering inputs. This data is then algorithmically processed into a risk score. The historical trend, recently confirmed by a landmark FTC settlement with General Motors in January 2026, shows that this granular information was being sold to third-party data brokers and insurance companies without explicit, clear-cut consumer consent. For Chloe, this means her insurance premiums could fluctuate based on a single aggressive merge into traffic, even if she was acting safely to avoid an accident. Then we must address the most controversial piece of hardware ever fast-tracked into the American passenger vehicle: the impaired driving prevention technology, often referred to in online circles as the kill switch. This tech is a direct result of Section 24220 of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which mandated that the NHTSA establish a safety standard for passive alcohol and impairment detection. In late 2026 models, we are seeing the first production-ready versions of these systems. Unlike a traditional breathalyzer, these are passive. They use sensors integrated into the start button or the steering wheel to perform tissue spectroscopy, measuring blood alcohol levels through the skin, or they use the cabin cameras to monitor for erratic ocular patterns associated with intoxication. The potential outcome is a vehicle that simply refuses to start if it decides the driver is impaired. While the safety benefits are undeniable, with Matt estimating that full implementation could save over 9,000 lives annually, the privacy and reliability concerns are staggering. Imagine Chloe is in a rush to an emergency, but the system triggers a false positive because she is wearing a specific type of hand sanitizer, or because she is suffering from a legitimate medical condition that mimics the ocular patterns of impairment. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation has warned that even a 1 in 10,000 false positive rate would strand thousands of unimpaired drivers every single day. This is the 2026 reality. Your car is now a judge and jury, making real-time decisions about your legal right to operate the machine you own. Furthermore, the 2026 interior is a goldmine for sensitive personal data that goes far beyond driving habits. A 2026 update to a major privacy study revealed that modern car manufacturers are capable of collecting data on everything from your weight, via seat sensors, to your heart rate and even your emotional state through voice recognition and facial analysis. Some privacy policies in 2026 still contain broad language that allows for the collection of inferred data, which can include sensitive categories like health status or even political leaning based on the locations you visit. For Chloe, her car knows she visits a specific medical clinic every Tuesday, and that she spends 40 minutes at a certain political rally. This location data, which several states like Oregon and Maryland have moved to ban the sale of in 2026, remains a legal gray area at the federal level. We also have to look at the subscription-locked interior. In 2026, buying the car is only the first step. Many of the features Chloe sees on her massive dashboard are locked behind a monthly paywall. Want the high-fidelity spatial audio to work? That is $15 a month. Want the seats to heat up past a certain level? That is another $10. This is the software-defined vehicle's final form. a hardware shell where the manufacturer retains ultimate control over which physical parts of the car you are allowed to use. This has led to a massive resurgence in the right-to-repair movement in 2026, as consumers realize they no longer truly own the functionality of their vehicles. As we look around the 2026 cabin, it is clear that the luxury of the future is not about leather or wood, it is about the digital experience. We are seeing the rise of AI-powered co-pilots that use large language models to handle everything from navigation to climate control. Chloe can tell her car, "I'm feeling stressed," and the vehicle will automatically dim the lights, play a calming playlist, and adjust the seat massage to a specific tension relief program. It is a level of comfort that feels magical, but it is built on a foundation of constant data harvesting. Every word Chloe says to the AI is processed, and in many cases stored to improve the model, creating yet another stream of personal data leaving the vehicle. But while the interior is watching the driver, the exterior is watching the world. The sensors used for driver monitoring are just a small part of a much larger suite of hardware that is currently trying to solve the hardest problem in tech: full autonomy. We have talked about the kill switch, but what happens when the car takes the wheel entirely? In 2026, the battle for Level 3 and Level 4 autonomy has moved from the testing tracks to the suburban streets, and the results are polarizing. We are diving into the 2026 autonomous war in the next part, including the secret reason why some of the biggest names in the industry are suddenly pulling back from self-driving tech while others are doubling down on a camera-only future that has the experts terrified. The autonomous war of 2026 has officially split the automotive world into two warring factions, and the line in the sand is drawn by a single piece of hardware: LiDAR. On one side, you have the vision purists led by Tesla, who believe that because humans drive using only two biological cameras and a neural processor, a car should do the same. On the other side, you have the sensor fusion traditionalists including Waymo, Mercedes-Benz, and Rivian, who argue that relying on cameras alone is like trying to navigate a dark room with a flashlight that occasionally blinks. To see how this technological schism impacts the everyday American, let us look at Alex, a logistics manager in San Francisco who commutes to San Jose. Alex lives in the epicenter of this conflict. Every morning, he has to decide between taking his personal 2026 Tesla Model 3 with FSD version 14 or hailing a Waymo robotaxi. The difference between these two experiences represents the fundamental question of the 2026 model year. Do you want a car that can do everything decently under your supervision, or a car that can do one specific thing perfectly without you? Let us break down the 2026 Tesla FSD V14, which has become the most widely deployed semi-autonomous system in history. Tesla has moved entirely away from heuristic-based coding, where engineers write lines of if-then statements, to a purely end-to-end neural network. This means the car has learned to drive by watching millions of hours of human video data. For Alex, the potential outcome is a driving experience that feels eerily human. In 2026, FSD V14 no longer hesitates at four-way stops like a confused student driver. It inches forward, makes eye contact through the windshield via its front-facing cameras, and takes the gap with confidence. Historical trends in Tesla's data flywheel show that by early 2026, the system has reached a milestone of 1 billion miles driven per month. Case studies from this massive dataset suggest that FSD-equipped vehicles are seeing a potential reduction in collision rates by up to 5 times compared to the US human average. However, the 2026 FSD V14 is still technically a Level 2 supervised system. This is the controversial reality Alex faces. Even though his Tesla can navigate from his driveway in San Francisco to his office parking lot in San Jose, including complex maneuvers like unprotected left turns across 3 lanes of traffic, he is legally and mechanically required to keep his hands near the wheel and his eyes on the road. Tesla has introduced a new speed profile in 2026 called Assertive Plus, which allows the car to maintain the flow of traffic more naturally, but it still suffers from what experts call the vision gap. Imagine Alex driving south on Highway 101 as the morning sun hits the horizon. The low-angle glare can temporarily blind the CMOS sensors in the cameras, leading to phantom braking or a sudden request for Alex to take over. This is the inherent risk of the camera-only approach that has the experts terrified. Without the redundant 3D depth mapping of LiDAR, the car is guessing distances based on pixel density. Contrast this with the 2026 Mercedes-Benz Drive Pilot, which is now available on the S-Class and EQS in specific US states like California and Nevada. Mercedes has taken the opposite path. They have doubled down on a sensor suite that includes long-range LiDAR, redundant steering and braking actuators, and a high-precision GPS system accurate to within 1 inch. This is a true level 3 system. When Alex enters a traffic jam on the I-80, he can engage Drive Pilot and literally take his hands off the wheel and his eyes off the road. He can watch a movie on the dash or answer emails. The car takes full legal liability during this period. The limitation? It only works on pre-mapped highways and at speeds up to 45 miles per hour. This is the trade-off of 2026. Mercedes gives you back your time but restricts your domain, while Tesla gives you a universal domain but demands your attention. The data from 2026 shows that the Level 3 market is expanding rapidly as manufacturers solve the handover problem. The handover is the critical 10-second window where the car realizes it can no longer drive and asks the human to take back control. Step by step, if the 2026 Mercedes-Benz Drive Pilot detects a construction zone that isn't in its HD maps, it begins a multi-sensory alert. The seatbelt vibrates, the ambient lighting flashes red, and an audible countdown begins. If Alex fails to respond, perhaps because he has fallen asleep, the car does not just turn off the system. It executes a minimum risk maneuver, which involves turning on the hazard lights, slowing the vehicle to a stop in the current lane, and automatically calling emergency services. This level of fail-safe engineering is why a Level 3 system costs an additional $5,000 to $10,000 in 2026 hardware and subscription fees. But the real disruption in the autonomous war is the 2026 Waymo One expansion. While Tesla and Mercedes are fighting for the personal vehicle market, Waymo has focused on the fleet. By March 2026, Waymo has expanded its driverless service to 20 major U.S. cities, including Miami, Austin, and Atlanta. Their 6th-generation sensor suite, mounted on the Jaguar I-Pace and the new Geely-built Zeekr platform, uses a revolutionary 360-degree LiDAR that can see objects through fog and heavy rain at a distance of 300 meters. Case studies from Waymo's Miami launch in early 2026 show that their vehicles are handling the chaotic urban environment with an 86% lower property damage claim rate than human drivers. For Alex, the Waymo represents Level 4 autonomy. The car is the driver, there is no steering wheel in some models, and his only job is to be a passenger. We are also seeing the entry of the 2026 Rivian R2 and R3, which are bringing high-level autonomy to the mass market. Rivian has opted for a middle ground in the autonomous war. They use a massive compute platform powered by NVIDIA's latest automotive chips, and a suite of 11 cameras and 5 radars, including a front-facing LiDAR on the flagship trims. Rivian's system, called Adventure Guide, is specifically tuned for American highways and, interestingly, for off-road trail navigation. Imagine Alex taking his R2 to Tahoe. The car can handle the highway portion hands-free, and once he hits the dirt, the system uses its high-resolution cameras to spot for him, highlighting the best line over rocks and through ruts. This is the diversification of 2026. Autonomy isn't just about the commute anymore. It is about enhancing every aspect of the drive. The 2026 autonomous landscape is also defined by the regulatory pivot. The Department of Transportation has finally updated federal motor vehicle safety standards to allow for cars without traditional controls, but only under strict certification. This has led to the 2026 certification crisis. Some legacy manufacturers are pulling back from their Level 3 promises because the cost of ensuring the system's decisions is becoming prohibitive. Historical trends suggest that as the AI becomes more capable, the legal framework becomes the bottleneck. We are seeing a potential outcome where only the top 3 or 4 tech-heavy automakers can actually afford to keep their self-driving systems active in all 50 states. As Alex arrives at his destination, he has experienced 2 different versions of the future. His Tesla felt like a co-pilot, agile and aggressive, while his Waymo ride felt like a silent, invisible chauffeur. The 2026 model year has proven that both paths are viable, but they lead to very different destinations. But there is a silent factor that could derail this entire autonomous movement, and it has nothing to do with software or sensors. It is the physical infrastructure. The battle for the battery is reaching a breaking point in the next part. The infrastructure collapse of 2026 was not a single catastrophic event, but rather a slow-motion collision between 20th-century electrical grids and 21st-century transportation demands. As we move deeper into this year, the sheer number of electric vehicles on American roads has reached a critical mass that is exposing every crack in our energy distribution systems. To see how this affects a typical driver, consider Marcus, a delivery fleet manager in Atlanta. In 2026, Marcus is not just managing drivers. He is managing a complex energy ballet. Atlanta, like many high-growth metropolitan areas, is seeing a historical trend where the demand for fast charging during peak hours is exceeding the local substation capacity. This has led to the rise of what industry insiders call the charging queue crisis. Marcus often finds his drivers waiting 45 minutes just for a plug to become available, even though the actual charging process only takes 15. This bottleneck has birthed a new era of engineering specifically designed to circumvent the grid. Grid Gorilla technology. This is not a single device, but a suite of hardware and software innovations that allow 2026 car models to act as their own mini-utilities. One of the most significant case studies in this field involves the 2026 Hyundai Ioniq 7. Hyundai has expanded its V2L or vehicle-to-load capabilities into a full-scale V2G or vehicle-to-grid ecosystem. Step by step, when Marcus's drivers return home, their vehicles do not just sit idle. Using a bidirectional charger, the Ioniq 7 can feed power back into the house or the local grid during peak demand hours when electricity prices are at their highest. Then, during the middle of the night when the grid is underutilized, the car draws power back at a much lower rate. This potential outcome effectively turns Marcus's fleet into a distributed battery backup system for the city of Atlanta, helping to stabilize the very grid that struggles to power them. But the Grid Gorilla tech goes even further with the introduction of AI-driven charging orchestration. For 2026, manufacturers like Rivian and Ford have introduced a feature called Q-Jump. This is a sophisticated software layer that communicates with charging networks in real time. Imagine Marcus's driver is 10 miles away from a busy charging hub. The truck's onboard computer is already negotiating a slot. If the truck's battery is at a critically low state of charge, and the driver has a high-priority delivery schedule logged in the system, the AI can actually bid for an earlier slot or direct the driver to a hidden, lower-usage charger that isn't showing up on public maps. This is the new reality of 2026. The car is actively fighting for its own energy. We must also examine the 2026 Tesla Supercharger version 4.5, which has been upgraded with massive megapack on-site storage. Tesla realized early on that they could not rely on the local utility companies to upgrade transformers fast enough. Instead, they have turned their charging stations into independent energy islands. Each 2026 Supercharger station now features its own solar canopy and a massive stationary battery. When the grid in Atlanta starts to sag under the summer heat, the superchargers disconnect from the utility entirely and run on their own stored reserves. This historical trend of vertical integration is why Tesla remains the dominant force in the 2026 infrastructure landscape. For Marcus, this means his Tesla-equipped drivers are seeing a potential outcome of 99% uptime, while his other vehicles are often at the mercy of rolling brownouts. However, the most radical solution to the 2026 infrastructure collapse is the resurgence of battery swapping for heavy-duty applications. While the consumer market has largely rejected swapping, the 2026 commercial sector is embracing it. Companies like Ample have partnered with several manufacturers to create the 2026 fleet swap system. Imagine Marcus's delivery vans pulling into a drive-through bay that looks like a car wash. In exactly 5 minutes, an automated robotic arm drops the depleted battery and slides in a fresh 100% charged unit. This removes the grid strain of fast charging entirely, as the station can charge the batteries slowly and efficiently over a longer period. Data from early 2026 case studies suggest that swapping can increase fleet productivity by 20% compared to traditional DC fast charging. Then there is the issue of charging deserts. In 2026, while coastal cities are saturated with plugs, the rural United States is still catching up. This is where the 2026 Toyota Land Cruiser Hybrid and the 2026 Jeep Recon are making their mark. Toyota has doubled down on their Beyond Zero strategy by focusing on high-efficiency plug-in hybrids that offer up to 80 miles of pure electric range for daily use, but retain a high-efficiency gasoline engine for the long stretches between rural outposts. The potential outcome for a driver in a rural area is a vehicle that can be charged from a standard 120-volt outlet overnight, but isn't stranded when the nearest fast charger is 200 miles away. This is a pragmatic response to the reality of 2026 infrastructure. The grid is not yet a universal safety net. We also have to discuss the 2026 wireless charging trials happening in cities like Detroit and Los Angeles. Several 2026 luxury models from brands like Genesis and Cadillac are now coming equipped with factory-installed induction coils. Step by step, the driver simply parks over a pad in their garage or at a specially equipped parking spot, and the energy begins to flow without ever touching a cable. While the efficiency is currently around 90%, slightly lower than a physical cable, the convenience factor is a massive selling point for the 2026 premium buyer. It solves the cable fatigue that many early adopters have reported in historical consumer surveys. But there is a silent threat lurking in the 2026 infrastructure: cybersecurity. As cars become more integrated with the grid, the charging plug has become a potential entry point for malicious actors. In 2026, we have seen several case studies of juice jacking, where a public charger attempts to upload unauthorized firmware to the vehicle's battery management system. This has led to the 2026 car models featuring dedicated hardware firewalls at the charging port. For Marcus, this means his fleet management software now includes a security dashboard that monitors the health and trustworthiness of every charging station his drivers use. The battle for the battery in 2026 is ultimately a battle for independence. The car is no longer just a consumer of energy, it is a participant in the grid. We are seeing a historical trend where the most successful 2026 models are those that can navigate the failures of the public infrastructure using their own internal intelligence. Whether it is through V2G energy arbitrage, AI-managed charging queues, or on-site solar integration, the 2026 vehicle is becoming a self-sustaining node in a fragile network. As we look at the struggle for energy in the 2026 landscape, it is clear that the transition is messy, expensive, and filled with unforeseen challenges. But while we are focused on the grid and the batteries, there is a whole other world of 2026 cars that are ignoring the electric revolution entirely. These are the models that are being kept alive by a different kind of enthusiast, the ones who believe that the future of the car isn't just about how it's powered, but how it's collected and preserved. In the next part, we are stepping into the 2026 modern classics and the forbidden fruit that American collectors are finally able to get their hands on. We are looking at the 2026 resale market and the specific models that are actually gaining value the moment they leave the lot. There is one specific Japanese import that is finally legal in 2026, and its arrival is about to send the used car market into a total tailspin. We are diving into the 2026 investment car scene in the next part. The 25-year rule is the single most important piece of legislation in the American automotive enthusiast community, and in 2026, it is finally unlocking the most coveted generation of Japanese and European performance legends. To understand why this is a financial and cultural earthquake, let us look at Kevin, a collector in Los Angeles who has spent the last decade watching from the sidelines as the rest of the world enjoyed the peak of analog engineering. For Kevin, 2026 is the year the forbidden fruit finally becomes legal. But there is a technical trap that many first-time importers fall into: the difference between a model year and a manufacturing date. In the eyes of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, a car does not become legal on January 1st of its 25th year. It becomes legal on the exact day it rolled off the assembly line 25 years ago. If Kevin imports a 2001 Nissan Skyline GTR that was manufactured in December 2001 and tries to bring it through the port of Long Beach in January 2026, he is not just looking at a paperwork delay. He is looking at a potential outcome where the vehicle is seized and crushed. The undisputed king of the 2026 import class is the Nissan Skyline GTR R34, specifically the 2001 M-Spec. While the 1999 and 2000 models have already started trickling into the United States, the 2001 M-Spec represents the pinnacle of the R34's evolution as a Grand Tourer. The M stands for Mizuno, named after the legendary chief engineer at Nissan, and it was designed to offer a more sophisticated driving experience than the track-focused V-Spec. Historical trends in the Japanese auction market show that the M-Spec is one of the rarest variants, with only 366 units ever produced. Step by step, what makes the M-Spec special in 2026 is its ripple control dampers and a leather-wrapped interior with heated seats, a luxury rarity in the JDM world of the early 2000s. For Kevin, owning an R34 M-Spec in 2026 is like owning a piece of history that has been scientifically proven to appreciate. Case studies of R34 values over the last 5 years show a trajectory that rivals high-end real estate, with exceptional examples already fetching over $300,000 at international auctions. But the 2026 import wave is not just a one-car show. February 2026 marks the eligibility of the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 7. This is a massive milestone because the Evo 7 was the first to utilize the CT9A platform, which introduced the active center differential. Imagine Kevin taking his newly legal Evo 7 to a local track day. In a traditional all-wheel drive car of that era, he might experience understeer when pushing hard through a corner. The Evo VII's ACD system uses an electronically controlled hydraulic multiplate clutch to manage the torque split between the front and rear axles, allowing the car to rotate with the agility of a rear-wheel drive vehicle while maintaining the grip of an AWD monster. This was the last generation of the forbidden Evos that never officially touched US soil, as the Evo 8 was the first to be federally certified for the American market in 2003. We also have to look at the 2001 Honda Integra Type R, known as the DC5. This is the car that enthusiasts have been waiting for since the US received the Acura RSX Type S. While they look similar, the JDM DC5 Type R is a different beast entirely. It features the K20A engine with higher compression, more aggressive camshafts, and a factory helical limited slip differential. Historical trends in the collector market suggest that the DC5 Type R is poised to become the next major blue-chip JDM asset. Data from 2025 sales indicates that low-mileage championship white examples are already seeing a spike in interest from younger Gen Z collectors who grew up seeing these cars in video games. For Kevin, the appeal of the DC5 is its mechanical purity. A 8,400 revolutions per minute redline and a close-ratio 6-speed manual transmission that offers a tactile connection that is simply non-existent in the 2026 models we discussed earlier. Crossing over to Europe, 2026 is also the year the Renault Sport Clio V6 Phase 1 becomes a frequent sight at American cars and coffee events. This is arguably one of the most insane hatchbacks ever conceived. Renault took a front-engine, front-wheel drive economy car, ripped out the back seats and stuffed a 3.0-liter V6 in the middle. The result is a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive wide-body monster with a wheelbase so short it requires the reflexes of a fighter pilot to handle at the limit. Case studies of the Clio V6 show that its rarity, with only 1,513 Phase 1 units produced, makes it a prime candidate for long-term value retention. For an American collector like Kevin, it represents a level of French automotive eccentricity that was never available through domestic channels. The investment side of the 2026 modern classic market is being driven by what experts call the analog premium. As we saw in the previous parts of this masterclass, the 2026 new car market is dominated by software, screens, and autonomous surveillance. This has created a massive countermovement, where the value of a vehicle is directly tied to its lack of digital interference. A 2001 Ferrari 550 Maranello, which hits its 25th anniversary throughout 2026, is the perfect example. It features a naturally aspirated V12 and a gated 6-speed manual shifter. There is no touchscreen, no lane keep assist, and no kill switch. For Kevin, the 550 Maranello is an investment in a driving experience that is being systematically erased by modern regulations. However, importing these legends in 2026 comes with a new set of challenges: the maintenance gap. A car that has been sitting in a Japanese climate-controlled garage for 25 years still has rubber seals, bushings, and timing belts that are a quarter-century old. Step by step, the cost of bringing a newly legal 2001 import up to modern reliability standards can easily reach $15,000 to $20,000. For example, the twin-turbo system on an R34 Skyline uses ceramic exhaust wheels which are known to shatter if the boost is increased beyond factory levels. Kevin must factor in the cost of bulletproofing these older engines with modern components, while maintaining their period-correct aesthetic to preserve their resale value. Data from the 2026 Hagerty Bull Market List suggests that the most successful automotive investments this year will be those that sit at the intersection of finality and engagement. This includes the last of the cable throttle Porsches and the final generation of the naturally aspirated BMW M cars, like the E46 M3, which continues to see steady appreciation. We are seeing a historical trend where the cars that were once considered just used cars in the early 2000s are now being treated with the same reverence as the 1960s muscle cars were in the 1990s. But as Kevin fills his garage with these analog icons, he is participating in a larger cultural shift. The 2026 car market has become a tale of two worlds: the high-tech, ultra-efficient, autonomous fleet of the future, and the raw mechanical driver-centric legends of the past. The gap between these two worlds has never been wider, but there is one car, one single 2026 model, that is attempting to bridge this gap. It is a vehicle that combines the radical software of the future with the visceral soul of the past in a way that no one thought possible. It is the definitive car of 2026, and its release has caused more controversy than every other model we have discussed combined. We are concluding this 10-part deep dive with the final reveal. We are looking at the car that has redefined the American dream for the mid-2020s, and why its existence might actually be the most important automotive event of our lifetime. The masterclass concludes in the next part. The vehicle that has finally arrived to bridge the chasm between our analog heritage and our digital destiny is the 2026 Scout Traveler. For decades, the Scout nameplate existed only in the memories of off-road purists and in the rusted frames of mid-century Americana. But in 2026, the revival of this brand by the Scout Motors division represents more than just a new SUV. It is a calculated response to every single anxiety and desire we have discussed in this 10-part masterclass. To understand why this specific launch is the most important automotive event of our lifetime, let us look at Sarah and Mark, a young couple in Colorado who represent the new American dream. They want the silent, instantaneous torque of an electric motor for their daily life, but they refuse to be tethered to a charging map when they head into the deep wilderness of the Rockies. In years past, they had to choose between a gas-guzzling legacy SUV or a range-limited EV. In 2026, the Scout Traveler has removed that compromise through a piece of engineering known as the Harvester. The Harvester system is a high-efficiency gasoline-powered range extender. Unlike a traditional hybrid, the engine never touches the wheels. Its sole purpose is to act as an onboard power plant for the massive battery pack. This is the ultimate grid guerrilla technology in action. For Sarah and Mark, the potential outcome is a vehicle with over 500 miles of total range. When they are in the city, the Traveler operates as a pure electric vehicle with a 350-mile battery range. But when they cross the threshold of the grid, the Harvester ensures they are never stranded. This is a historical trend in engineering, where we see a return to redundant systems to provide true independence. Step by step, the Scout Motors team has designed the Traveler to be a body-on-frame monster, capable of towing 7,000 pounds and carrying 2,000 pounds of payload. It is the rugged mechanical soul of a 1970s Scout II, infused with the computational power of a 2026 flagship. But the Scout Traveler's importance goes beyond its powertrain. It is the first major 2026 model to intentionally push back against the glass cockpit trend. While it features a high-resolution display for navigation, the interior is dominated by tactile switches, mechanical dials, and a physical volume knob. Scout Motors conducted extensive case studies on driver distraction and found that in high-stakes off-road environments, the human brain functions significantly better with physical feedback. For Sarah, this means she can adjust her differential locks or climate control by feel alone, without ever taking her eyes off a narrow shelf road. This is the return of the tactile luxury we hinted at in Part 1. The 2026 Scout is not a computer on wheels that happens to be a car. It is a car that uses a computer to be better at being a car. This philosophy extends to the vehicle's repairability. In an era where many 2026 models are being built as disposable digital appliances, Scout has committed to an open-source approach to hardware. The Traveler features a modular front bumper, integrated mounting points for accessories that do not require drilling, and a software architecture that is designed to be compatible with third-party diagnostics. This is a direct response to the right to repair movement we analyzed in the interior deep dive. It suggests a potential outcome where the 2026 Scout Traveler could actually be a 40-year vehicle, much like its ancestors. This is the antithesis of the planned obsolescence that has plagued the industry for the last decade. As we look at the broader landscape of 2026, we see that the Scout Traveler is not alone in this mission to bridge the gap. We are seeing the 2026 Jeep Wagoneer S and the 2026 Rivian R2 also competing for this middle ground. The data from 2026 shows a massive surge in what analysts call the adventure segment. Americans are no longer buying cars just for the commute, they are buying them as insurance policies for their freedom. The historical trend shows that in times of rapid technological change, consumers gravitate toward brands that offer a sense of permanence and reliability. The Scout Traveler, with its mechanical lockers and its ability to act as a mobile power station for a campsite, is the physical manifestation of that desire. However, the 2026 model year has also taught us a hard lesson about the cost of this innovation. The average price of a 2026 vehicle with these capabilities has climbed to $65,000. While we discussed the affordable EV crisis in Part 4, the reality for 2026 is that true automotive independence has become a premium product. For Mark and Sarah, the Scout represents a significant financial commitment. This has led to the rise of new ownership models, such as the Scout Fractional Program, where multiple families share the cost and usage of a single high-capability vehicle. Case studies from early 2026 indicate that this collaborative consumption model is becoming a viable way for younger Americans to access the top-tier technology of the year without the burden of a 72-month loan. The 2026 automotive year will be remembered as the year the industry finally stopped overpromising and started delivering on the practical realities of a transition era. We have seen the peak of internal combustion performance in the Corvette ZR1X, the pinnacle of digital luxury in the Mercedes EQS, and the democratization of range in the Lucid Air. But more importantly, we have seen the birth of a new category of vehicle that respects the driver's autonomy as much as it respects the environment. The 2026 car is smarter, safer, and more capable than anything that came before it, but it is also more complex and more connected to a global data network that we are only beginning to understand. As we conclude this masterclass, the evidence is clear. The car you buy in 2026 is the most advanced tool you will ever own. It is a sentinel that watches over you, a data center that connects you, and a power plant that can fuel your life. But as we have seen through every part of this deep dive, the responsibility now falls on the consumer to understand the technology they are bringing into their lives. The 2026 model year is not just a sneak peek at the future. It is the arrival of a new way of living on the road. We have moved past the era of the simple machine and into the era of the integrated partner. The American dream has shifted from owning the road to owning the energy and the data that moves you across it. Whether you choose the analog purity of a 2001 import or the high-tech sanctuary of a 2026 flagship, you are participating in the most radical transformation of mobility since the horse and buggy. This has been your 2026 Deep Dive Masterclass. The future is no longer a concept. It is sitting in the showroom waiting for you to turn the key or, more likely, to tap the screen. But as the 2026 model year comes to a close, a new rumor is already starting to circulate in the halls of the NTSB and the design studios of Tokyo. There is a specific technological breakthrough in solid-state electrolytes that has just passed its final safety certification, and it is set to make every battery we talked about today obsolete by 2028. The first prototypes have been spotted in the California desert, and they are doing things that the 2026 models can only dream of. We are already gathering the telemetry for our next deep dive into the 2027 and 2028 lineups. The pace of change is accelerating, and if you thought 2026 was a shock to the system, you are not prepared for what happens when the charging time drops to 5 minutes and the range doubles to 1,000 miles. We are breaking down the 2028 solid-state revolution very soon.